You've tried to make life obey your plans, shaping outcomes, controlling the timing, predicting the next step. Yet the more you tighten your grip, the less flow you feel. There's a quiet point where the mind's effort collapses and something deeper begins to move. This is where trust enters, not as a fragile hope, but as a new kind of intelligence. The process itself starts to reveal that certainty is not safety, and not knowing is not chaos. It's the opening through which the quantum field begins to respond. You don't have to figure out what's next. You have to let the energy that already knows unfold through you. The paradox is simple. Transformation begins the moment you stop demanding proof. Trust doesn't wait for clarity, it creates it. Control has always disguised itself as protection. It promises security, predictability, and order. Yet what it truly creates is contraction. The human mind, in its attempt to orchestrate every outcome, begins to operate like a closed circuit. It recycles the same fears, the same desires, the same calculations. This obsessive anticipation generates a subtle tension that cuts off the natural current of energy. What many call resistance is nothing more than the frequency of control vibrating through the body, a low hum that tells the universe, "I don't trust you." The ancient masters understood this contradiction long before quantum theory named it. Lao Tzu spoke of Wu Wei, the art of effortless action, where harmony arises not from manipulation, but from alignment. The Tao never forces. It flows through all things, because it doesn't seek to dominate them. When you insist on controlling reality, you step out of that current. You become like a hand gripping water. The tighter the grasp, the faster it slips away. Control feels rational, but it's an act of fear disguised as responsibility. It implies a hidden assumption that life, if left on its own, would make a mistake. This belief keeps the energetic body in constant alert, contracting muscles, shallow breathing, narrowing awareness. The nervous system, unable to distinguish between physical and imagined threats, sustains a loop of survival. Quantumly speaking, this state of tension broadcasts incoherence into the field. The particles of possibility, the very fabric of your future, receive mixed signals. One part of you asks for expansion, another insists on safety. The result is stagnation. What you label as blocked energy, lack of inspiration, or things not working out often isn't a punishment or delay. It's the natural outcome of interference. You've created too much noise in the signal. The field doesn't respond to effort. It responds to coherence. The irony is that control seems active, but it actually paralyzes the creative wave. True creation requires the stillness of surrender, the same stillness that allows a seed to germinate in the dark. If you look closely, you'll notice that control is never about the present moment. It always projects into the future, an attempt to secure outcomes that don't exist yet. The mind says, if I just plan enough, I'll avoid uncertainty. But the quantum field operates outside the logic of linear time. It responds not to plans but to states of being. The more you try to dictate the timeline, the further you drift from alignment with it. The universe doesn't bend to your will, it mirrors your vibration. Lao Tzu's wisdom finds its modern echo in quantum physics. The principle of non-interference mirrors Wu Wei. Observation affects the observed, not because of thought, but because of the energetic imprint behind it. When you observe with attachment, you collapse reality through resistance. When you observe with ease, you allow coherence to form naturally. The flow of the Tao and the flow of the quantum field are two expressions of the same intelligence, effortless balance. The illusion of control also feeds on cultural conditioning. Society glorifies the planner, the achiever, the one who always knows what comes next. We're taught that surrender equals passivity, yet the deepest transformations occur precisely in the absence of force. The caterpillar doesn't design its wings. It dissolves into the unknown. The artist doesn't outline every stroke before painting. Creation happens in dialogue with uncertainty. The same is true for the field. It responds most powerfully when you stop dictating and start listening. Control is the last defense of the ego, the small self terrified of disappearing. It believes it must manage the unfolding of life, unaware that life itself already contains the intelligence to evolve. To release control feels like dying, but what dies is only the illusion of separation. The deeper self doesn't need to control reality because it is reality. When you begin to sense that, control becomes irrelevant. Still, the release cannot be forced. You can't try to let go. Effort itself belongs to the old frequency. What helps is awareness, noticing the micro-tensions in your body each time you plan, compare, or predict. Every contraction is a signal that you've stepped out of trust. In that moment, pause. Feel the breath return, the shoulders drop, the heart expand slightly. That tiny shift from doing to allowing is the quantum pivot. You're no longer trying to manipulate energy. You're letting it organize itself around coherence. When the need to control softens, energy starts to move again. You feel it as subtle ease, synchronicities reappearing, inspiration returning. These are not coincidences. They're confirmations that the field is clearing. The flow of life doesn't resist you. It mirrors your openness. As Lao Tzu wrote, "The world is won by those who let it go." In modern terms, reality aligns with those who stop interfering with it. To trust the process, then, is not to abandon intention. It's to release the rigidity of outcome. The intention remains, clear, resonant, but unattached. It becomes a frequency rather than a demand. From that point, the field can finally respond. Control separates you from the current of creation. Surrender reconnects you. The difference between both is not passivity versus action, it's tension versus coherence. Every time you choose ease over effort, you dissolve another layer of resistance. The current reclaims you. The mind will still try to take back the reins, whispering that things will fall apart if you don't manage them. Smile at it and let it be wrong. Because the truth, the one Lao Tzu hinted at, and quantum physics now confirms, is that the universe doesn't need your control to function perfectly. It only needs your coherence to reveal what was always possible. Most people believe trust is an attitude, a mindset you adopt to stay calm while life unfolds. But trust is not mental, it's vibrational. It's not what you think about the process. It's what your energy communicates to the field beneath your thoughts. The universe doesn't interpret words or intentions. It responds to frequency. Every thought carries a charge, every emotion an oscillation, every belief a pattern that imprints itself onto the quantum field. To trust the process, then, is to broadcast coherence rather than confusion. It's to stabilize your vibration in the knowing that the unseen is already organizing itself toward harmony. In the quantum realm, observation is not passive. The very act of awareness changes the probability of manifestation. But the nature of that change depends entirely on the state of the observer. A mind filled with doubt sends contradictory signals, wanting and fearing, asking and resisting. This energetic noise keeps potential realities in flux, unable to collapse into form. When observation becomes neutral, grounded, present, and free from need, probability converges into alignment. The field reflects coherence because coherence is what it receives. Trust, therefore, isn't blind faith, it's precise resonance. Science calls it observer effect. Spirituality calls it faith. In truth, both point to the same mechanism. Energy responds to the quality of attention it receives. When you observe life with tension, you collapse outcomes that match tension. When you observe with ease, you open portals for order to emerge. The field mirrors your frequency, the way water mirrors the sky. Calm sky, calm reflection. Stormy sky, distorted reflection. Your trust determines the clarity of that mirror. This is why mental affirmations alone rarely work. You can repeat, "I trust the process," while your nervous system vibrates in fear. The field doesn't hear the sentence, it feels the vibration. Trust as a frequency must be embodied. It begins in the subtle body, not the intellect. When you breathe deeply, soften your focus and allow stillness to settle in your chest, your electromagnetic field shifts. The heart's rhythm begins to synchronize with the brain's waves, creating measurable coherence. The body becomes a transmitter of alignment, and the quantum field, which is pure potential, starts to organize around that signal. Imagine two tuning forks. Strike one, and the other begins to vibrate at the same frequency, even from a distance. That's resonance. The same principle governs manifestation. Your inner state vibrates first. The external world harmonizes to match it. You don't attract through wanting, you attract through being. When you trust, you're not waiting for evidence, you are the evidence. Your energy becomes proof of alignment and the field responds accordingly. Trust doesn't mean ignoring reality. It means understanding that reality is fluid, not fixed. The physical world is a delayed reflection of vibrational states that have already been emitted. You don't chase outcomes, you tune yourself to them. To change what you experience, you change the signal you're broadcasting. It's not a technique, it's a shift in identity. You stop identifying as the one trying to make things happen and begin remembering yourself as the frequency through which things happen. The moment you enter true trust, your perception of time shifts. There's no more waiting because you're no longer separate from the process. The field you once tried to influence now feels like an extension of your awareness. You notice subtle synchronicities, not as rewards but as feedback loops confirming coherence. These moments seem magical, but they are simply the physics of alignment made visible. Trust amplifies the probability of harmony. Neville Goddard hinted at this when he described faith as imagination in a state of rest. When the inner vision rests in certainty, the outer world begins to reshape itself. There's no need to strain or visualize endlessly. The field reorganizes the moment the vibration of knowing becomes consistent. It's not the intensity of desire that creates, it's the steadiness of trust. Desire pulls from lack, trust radiates from completion. The reason trust feels difficult is that it dismantles the illusion of control. The mind equates letting go with losing power, but in quantum terms it's the opposite. The observer who releases resistance gains influence because their energy becomes clear. The field can only respond accurately to coherence. Incoherence, fear, doubt, overthinking scrambles the signal. Imagine trying to tune a radio station while static distorts the sound. Trust is the silence that allows the music to be heard. In daily life, this vibrational truth manifests in simple ways. When you trust a conversation, it flows. When you trust your timing, the right encounters appear. When you trust your path, decisions become effortless. It's not that the world changes, it's that your coherence makes its patterns visible. The energy that was scattered by fear condenses into clarity. There's a quiet experiment you can do at any moment. Bring to mind something unresolved, a situation you wish would move forward. Notice the immediate tension in your body, the subtle clenching behind the thought. Then breathe into it. Allow the muscles to loosen and the thought to dissolve without forcing an answer. As you exhale, feel the vibration of relief rather than certainty. That sensation, light, open, present, is trust in motion. You've just altered the frequency through which the field perceives you. Quantumly speaking, the universe is not testing your patience, it's matching your signal. When the vibration of trust stabilizes, probability collapses into coherence. The energy that once seemed chaotic begins to arrange itself naturally. What looks like manifestation is simply the field returning to equilibrium. You don't make it happen. You allow it to happen by becoming a vibrational match to it. Trust, then, is not a virtue, but a technology. It's the art of maintaining coherence amid uncertainty. It's the ability to stand inside the unknown without transmitting fear. Every act of surrender fine-tunes your resonance, and every moment of faith reinforces the signal. The field listens, always, and its language is frequency. When you learn to speak through vibration instead of words, you discover that life has been responding to you all along, not to what you wanted, but to what you were being. You can feel it before it happens. That subtle pull inside the chest, the sense that something invisible is rearranging you from within. The thoughts that once gave structure begin to sound hollow. The old certainties lose their taste, and what used to feel solid now flickers like static. This is the threshold where transformation begins, not because life has changed, but because the vibration behind your perception has started to shift. Doubt surfaces here not as failure, but as evidence that the old frequency is dissolving. Doubt isn't the opposite of faith, it's faith searching for a higher octave. It's the static between two stations, one fading, the other not yet tuned. The quantum field mirrors this tension perfectly. As long as the observer wavers between two vibrations, reality remains blurred, suspended between potentialities. The moment attention stabilizes, not forced but naturally settled, the wave collapses into coherence. The world takes shape around a new certainty that no longer needs proof. Neville Goddard called this state faith in rest. It's not belief layered with effort. It's the quiet knowing that the unseen has already conspired. The imagination, once restless, becomes still. The picture of fulfillment no longer feels like fantasy. It feels inevitable. In that stillness, energy stops scattering. The mind ceases to debate outcomes and the field, finally free of contradiction, begins to align. The new is born not through action, but through vibrational stability. The collapse of doubt feels physical. Shoulders loosen. Breath deepens. The pulse evens out. What was once mental becomes cellular. The body starts carrying the signal of trust before the mind fully understands it. This shift is measurable. Coherence between the heart and brain rises. Electromagnetic patterns smooth out and perception expands. You're not just thinking positively, you're reconfiguring the field through biology. The challenge is that the ego interprets this stillness as loss of control. It whispers warnings. You're doing nothing. You're being naive. You'll fall behind. But those voices are echoes of the previous vibration, frequencies that cannot follow you into coherence. The mind fears silence because silence exposes its illusion of power. Yet the field only responds to that silence. It listens for the space beneath thought, the still point where intention is pure and interference dissolves. The more you try to reason your way into trust, the further you move from it. Logic requires evidence, coherence generates it. Doubt insists on linear cause and effect. If I do this, I'll get that. But the quantum field is non-linear. It reorganizes reality based on the resonance of being, not the sequence of doing. The new begins the instant your vibration stops oscillating between desire and fear. Observe how doubt behaves in real time. It tightens the solar plexus, rushes the breath, shortens the future into small probabilities. The signal you emit becomes erratic. Attraction one moment, repulsion the next. When you notice this contraction, don't fight it. Stay with it until it softens. As the body releases tension, energy redistributes. The heart resumes its natural rhythm, and the signal clears. That single act of awareness, observing without resistance, is the collapse of doubt in motion. In quantum language, coherence is not the absence of thought, but the synchronization of vibration. Every cell becomes an antenna tuned to the same field. The observer and the observed begin to merge. You no longer try to manifest. You emanate the outcome through frequency. The result often appears as synchronicity, but what you're really seeing is the external world catching up to your stabilized vibration. Faith of this nature has nothing to do with optimism. It is precision. It's the discipline of staying internally consistent, regardless of external fluctuation. The world might still look uncertain, but your frequency no longer reacts to it. You've become the reference point, the calibration source for reality itself. Imagine standing before a mirror while holding a trembling candle. The reflection dances wildly, its form unstable. The moment your hand steadies, the image becomes clear. That steadiness is trust. The reflection, reality, only calms once you stop shaking. Every collapse of doubt is a stilling of that inner tremor. Each stilling births a new coherence. Doubt thrives on noise, overthinking, seeking validation, measuring progress. Silence dissolves it because silence contains no friction. In stillness, the wave function collapses naturally and a single possibility crystallizes into being. What emerges feels less like discovery and more like recognition. The new reality doesn't surprise you. It feels familiar, like something you've always known but forgot how to see. The moment the vibration stabilizes, the new self begins to function effortlessly. Decisions arise without analysis. Encounters unfold with uncanny precision. The same world that once seemed indifferent now mirrors every subtle nuance of your state. You realize that nothing external shifted first, only the frequency through which you observed. Neville's insight echoes through this. The imagination held in rest is creation fulfilled. The rest is not laziness. It's coherence so complete that the universe has no option but to conform. Doubt has no foothold in that field because there is no gap left to fill. The birth of the new is simply the disappearance of interference. And in that silence, you sense a profound truth. You never needed to overcome doubt, only to stop believing it was yours. Doubt belongs to the version of you that forgot its unity with the field. Once that version fades, creation ceases to be a struggle. You no longer oscillate between wishing and waiting. You are the field observing itself into form. This is the real beginning of the new. It doesn't arrive through external change, but through internal resonance. The transformation is quiet, almost imperceptible at first. But beneath that quiet, a different rhythm takes hold, one that moves with the certainty of life itself. The mind calls it trust. The field calls it coherence. And from that coherence, the new world is born. There is a phase in transformation that most people misinterpret as failure. Nothing moves, inspiration dries out, familiar patterns dissolve, and what once felt meaningful turns weightless. It's not regression, it's incubation. The quantum field has pulled back your old timeline, and the new one hasn't yet crystallized. This suspension between realities, the void, is the most sacred interval in the entire process. It's the space where everything invisible begins to take shape. Yet to the untrained mind, it looks like emptiness, stagnation, even punishment. The void isn't a place of nothing. It's a field of pure potential. But potential can't be recognized through the senses, only through awareness. Here, the linear mind loses its grip because there's no sequence to measure. You're no longer in before or after. You're in between, where time stretches and the sense of self unravels. This is the chrysalis stage of consciousness. Just as a caterpillar dissolves into fluid before becoming a butterfly, the old frequency must disintegrate before a higher coherence can form. What feels like disorientation is actually cellular reorganization. In the void, identity itself becomes porous. The stories that defined you lose relevance. You stop knowing who you are because the version that needed definition is dissolving. The ego resists this silence, demanding movement, demanding proof that something is happening. But the quantum process operates in stillness. The energy that once rushed outward into control now turns inward to recalibrate. The void is not an absence of motion. It's motion too subtle for the senses to detect. Think of deep space. What appears empty is teeming with particles in constant interaction, invisible to the naked eye yet responsible for the formation of galaxies. The same thing happens within you. Your inner space reorganizes before the new structure becomes visible. The silence you feel is the hum of creation working beyond perception. The mind interprets this as a loss of momentum, but in truth, it's the stabilization of a new vibrational order. Every cycle of expansion requires this pause. Even in nature, growth is rhythmic. The seed germinates in darkness before reaching for light. The human journey mirrors that pattern. The moments of stillness between intentions are where coherence is woven. The void becomes unbearable only when you resist it, when you mistake silence for abandonment. In reality, the field has never been more active. It's just that the frequency of action has shifted from physical to quantum. The ego equates worth with productivity. So when life asks for stillness, it interprets that as failure. But the void demands a different kind of engagement, not doing, but being. Your task here is to hold presence without interference. Observation without judgment becomes the catalyst. Each time you catch yourself craving answers or timelines, notice the contraction it creates. That contraction is the echo of the old reality trying to survive. As you release it, the field adjusts, preparing to reveal the next configuration of self. In this suspension, perception sharpens. You begin to sense how much of your previous reality was built on habit rather than authenticity. The stillness exposes every attachment disguised as purpose. Relationships, ambitions, and identities that once seemed essential lose their charge. It's not detachment born of indifference, it's clarity born of resonance. The field is cleansing your frequency. Anything out of alignment falls silent, so that coherence can rebuild from truth. The void also dismantles your relationship with time. Without the familiar progression of cause and effect, the nervous system panics. It doesn't understand a process that unfolds outside sequence. Yet this is the essence of quantum transformation: simultaneity. The new timeline is already formed. It simply exists in a higher frequency band. As your vibration stabilizes, awareness begins to tune into it. The void isn't a gap between events, it's the bridge of frequency that connects them. Patience here is not passive waiting, it's vibrational endurance. You hold your center long enough for coherence to complete its work. That's why many give up just before the shift manifests. They mistake the silence for the end, rather than the midpoint. The deeper the void, the more profound the transformation being prepared. The caterpillar dissolves completely before flight becomes possible. You're experiencing the same alchemy, only through consciousness rather than form. To inhabit the void consciously is to practice quantum faith. It's trusting the invisible architecture that reorganizes your entire energetic field without demanding evidence. In this neutrality, energy becomes malleable. Doubt can't survive here because there's nothing for it to attach to. No outcomes, no expectations, only presence. The field responds to this purity by reconfiguring everything around it. The new reality is born not from action, but from sustained coherence inside the unknown. Stillness, in its deepest sense, is not inactivity. It's the most concentrated state of power. The quantum field, like the chrysalis, hides its activity beneath apparent stillness. The more you rest into it, the more potent your frequency becomes. Every breath inside the void is a recalibration, every pause a refinement of vibration. Eventually you feel the subtle lift, the energy that begins to move again, but from a higher octave. That's the signal. The new pattern has stabilized enough to translate into matter. When emergence comes, it doesn't announce itself. It unfolds quietly, like dawn dissolving the night. The external changes are merely confirmations of what the void already accomplished. You'll look back and realize that nothing was lost in the silence, only the noise that once distorted your signal. The void wasn't absence, it was preparation. To walk through it without panic is mastery. You've learned to rest where the mind cannot operate, to trust the invisible reconfiguration of your own field. This is the pulse of quantum transformation, the moment potential turns to form not through force, but through surrender. The old dissolves. The new doesn't rush. It simply appears, coherent and inevitable, born from the silence that held everything together. Deadlines keep tightening around your days. You wake with a list already waiting, a schedule dictating who you are allowed to be. Every moment seems borrowed from the next. Yet beneath that rhythm, something quieter begins to resist. An intuition that life isn't supposed to feel like a countdown. The soul doesn't rush. It doesn't measure itself in hours or milestones. It lives inside a different kind of time, one the mind can't control or calculate. Linear time was built for survival. It organizes tasks, tracks progress, and gives shape to memory. But the soul experiences time as expansion, not sequence. To it, all possibilities exist at once, woven together in the same quantum fabric. The mind says before and after, the soul says here. The deeper you move into awareness, the more you sense that time isn't moving forward at all. It's unfolding inward. This is why true transformation never follows a schedule. The clock can only measure the visible part of change. It can't measure the silent recalibration beneath it. You might think nothing is happening, yet in the unseen layers of your field, entire patterns are being rewritten. The mind demands proof through results. The soul measures progress by coherence. What you call waiting is often just your frequency syncing with the reality you've already chosen. Eckhart Tolle described the present as the portal through which eternity enters perception. The idea sounds poetic until you experience it directly. The moment thought pauses and something vast, alive and wordless fills the space. That is the time of the soul. Not an instant, not a duration, but an awareness so still that everything fits inside it. In that stillness, the field rearranges. Possibilities that once felt distant begin to approach because distance itself dissolves. The linear mind, however, struggles to rest here. It feeds on progress and prefers the illusion of movement to the truth of stillness. It believes that every second not spent achieving is a second wasted. But the quantum field doesn't respond to motion. It responds to vibration. The more frantic the pace, the more scattered the signal. The slower you breathe, the clearer it becomes. Presence, not effort, is the real accelerator. Think of two frequencies trying to synchronize. If one keeps fluctuating, harmony never stabilizes. Your constant measuring, comparing, and predicting does the same. It keeps the field unsettled. Every projection into the future creates a gap between what you are and what you desire. That gap is the illusion of time. Collapse it by returning awareness to the now, again and again, until your energy stops oscillating. Coherence replaces anticipation, and life starts responding instantly. Living in the time of the soul doesn't erase responsibility. It refines it. You still act, but the actions arise from alignment, not urgency. Decisions made from presence carry a different frequency. Clean, immediate, and often effortless. You stop forcing outcomes and begin allowing precision. You realize that the right timing was never something to predict. It was something to embody. In this state, patience transforms. It's no longer endurance, it's intimacy with the process. You start to see that the soul's timing is never slow, it's exact. The meeting that feels delayed, the project that pauses, the silence that stretches longer than comfort, all are calibrations, ensuring that your external world matches your internal frequency. The moment the two align, movement returns, not because you pushed harder, but because the field found coherence through you. The mind sees time as scarcity, the soul sees it as canvas. Every breath becomes a brushstroke, shaping the vibration of experience. You can feel this shift physically. In the old rhythm, the body tightens, breath shortens, shoulders lift. In the new rhythm, the nervous system settles, and attention expands outward like light. The future stops feeling like a race and starts feeling like an unfolding that already includes you. This awareness changes how you measure progress. Instead of asking how long will it take, you begin to ask, how present can I stay while it unfolds? You stop chasing the next moment because you realize this one contains the entire field. Every potential, every outcome, every version of you already exists here, vibrating at slightly different frequencies. The task is not to move toward them, but to tune into the one that feels coherent. To live by the time of the soul is to step outside the story of delay and lack. It's understanding that nothing is late, nothing missing, nothing wasted. Each experience arrives at the precise vibrational moment you can hold it. You're not catching up to your destiny, you're remembering it in layers. If this perspective resonates with you, if it loosens something inside that has been held by the clock for too long, take a moment before you scroll away. Feel your own pulse, the one rhythm that never follows a calendar. Let it remind you that you're already synchronized with something much greater than the schedule. And if that realization landed, let's make it tangible. Type in the comments, I release the clock. I live in the field. Let that sentence be your declaration to the quantum. Then like this video as an anchor, a small act that marks your shift from linear to timeless, from rushing to resonance. You're not behind, you're exactly on frequency. Reality doesn't hand you what you ask for. It shows you what you are. Every moment reflects the vibration you emit, not as punishment or reward, but as coherence. The quantum field acts as a mirror so precise that it can't distort your frequency. It doesn't translate language or logic, it translates resonance. The events, people, and emotions surrounding you are the field's way of saying, this is your current signal. Trust is the only vibration that keeps that signal clear. When you trust, your energy smooths into coherence, the heart and brain synchronize, and the electromagnetic field you broadcast becomes ordered. The universe responds to that order by arranging matching frequencies, not out of sentiment, but through physics. Coherence attracts coherence. Chaos attracts chaos. If your outer world feels fragmented, it's not because the field has betrayed you, it's because it's reflecting the internal static of divided attention. This reflection is constant and neutral. The field has no preference for what you project. Whether you radiate fear or faith, it multiplies it. That's why life often seems repetitive. You keep encountering versions of the same experience until your vibration changes. It's not fate, it's feedback. The mirror keeps presenting what's unresolved, hoping you'll finally see that the source isn't out there. It's your own frequency waiting to be recalibrated. Trust transforms this feedback loop. It removes the distortion caused by resistance. Imagine a lake on a still morning. When the water is calm, it reflects the sky perfectly. Stir it with fear or control, and the image blurs. The lake doesn't choose the reflection. It simply reveals the movement happening within it. The quantum field works the same way. The moment you stop thrashing for control, your reflection clears, and what you call manifestation begins to stabilize. The mind often misinterprets this neutrality as indifference. It wants a universe that rewards virtue and punishes mistake, but the field operates beyond morality. It doesn't care if your vibration comes from wisdom or ignorance, only that it's coherent. A steady vibration, even if born of despair, will manifest faster than a hopeful thought clouded by doubt. That's why trust is so powerful. It organizes your frequency into steadiness. It ends the internal conflict that keeps the mirror shaking. The act of trusting doesn't require proof. It produces proof. Each time you hold trust longer than fear, you change the structure of your field. At first, the reflection shifts subtly. A conversation flows more easily. A delay resolves itself. An answer appears unforced. The more you maintain coherence, the more visible the reflection becomes. What once seemed like coincidence starts revealing an unmistakable rhythm, as if the universe has begun to speak your language. In truth, it always was. You just weren't listening at the right frequency. Trust is not passive acceptance, it's active alignment. It says, I know the field is listening and I will speak only through coherence. The practice is less about convincing yourself everything will work out and more about embodying the energy of already being aligned. That embodiment communicates more clearly than any prayer or affirmation. The quantum field doesn't need to be persuaded. It needs to be mirrored through stability. The mirror doesn't just show your desires, it reveals your contradictions. You may declare that you want abundance while vibrating scarcity, or long for love while radiating mistrust. The field faithfully reflects the dominant vibration, not the stated wish. This is not cruelty, it's calibration. The mirror teaches integrity between intention and frequency. Trust bridges that gap. It gathers scattered energy and focuses it into coherence, allowing your outer world to catch up to your inner clarity. Every reflection in your life, even the painful ones, is a map pointing toward greater alignment. The person who challenges your patience, the project that stalls, the silence after your effort, all are precise readings of your vibration. Instead of reacting, use them as mirrors. Ask yourself, what part of me is being shown here? That single question transforms resistance into awareness. Awareness reorganizes energy. Trust grows stronger with each moment you choose reflection over reaction. At higher coherence, the mirror becomes luminous. You start witnessing synchronicities that feel orchestrated with impossible timing, a message, a meeting, a sudden opening. These are not rewards. They're confirmations that your signal is stable. The field has no need to delay what matches you. Once the vibration is clear, manifestation becomes instantaneous because reality has nothing left to correct. Trust also redefines your relationship with uncertainty. Instead of fearing what might appear, you start anticipating the reflection as feedback. Even when it's uncomfortable, you realize that every disruption is an invitation to refine your frequency. This perspective dissolves blame, resentment, and victimhood. The mirror is not against you, it's your teacher. The clearer you become, the gentler its lessons grow. To live in trust is to live in constant conversation with the field. You no longer plead for outcomes, you interpret reflections. Every event becomes an echo of your own vibration returning home. There's profound freedom in that. The understanding that you're never waiting for the world to change. You're waiting for your signal to steady enough for the world to mirror it. Look around your life now, not with judgment, but with curiosity. What does your current reflection reveal about your vibration? Can you sense where coherence is strong and where fear still distorts the image? The mirror of trust never lies. It offers data, not verdicts. Your role is to adjust the frequency, not criticize the reflection. Eventually, you'll discover that the mirror itself disappears. The distinction between you and the field fades. The reflection and the reflector are the same consciousness observing itself into form. Trust doesn't just clean the mirror, it dissolves it. Reality stops being something you experience and becomes something you are. The deepest form of trust is not believing that everything will work out. It's no longer needing it to. Conscious surrender begins here, in that quiet recognition that control was never real power, only interference. You stop negotiating with the universe and start listening to it. Observation becomes your instrument. Instead of reacting to what you see, you begin to see without distortion, and that changes everything. Neutral observation is not detachment. It's the most intimate kind of presence. You're fully engaged, yet free of judgment. The moment you drop the need to label events as good or bad, they reveal their true geometry. The field rearranges itself effortlessly around neutrality because neutrality carries no resistance. It's the frequency of pure coherence, awareness without preference. From that space, creation unfolds with surgical precision. The habit of judgment keeps reality fragmented. Each label, each comparison, divides the flow of energy into opposites. The mind does this automatically. It's how it tries to orient itself. But the quantum field doesn't operate through polarity. It organizes through resonance. To judge is to vibrate contradiction. Attraction toward what's wanted, resistance toward what's not. The two cancel each other, freezing momentum. When you observe neutrally, energy can finally move again. Imagine looking at a river. The surface reflects light and turbulence, but beneath it runs a steady current that never stops. Neutrality allows you to sense that current beneath every situation. The drama on the surface doesn't vanish, it simply loses authority. You stop being pulled by emotional rapids because your awareness is anchored deeper than reaction. This is not passivity, it's mastery of focus. The observer who remains steady shapes the flow more effectively than the one thrashing in it. In the quantum sense, observation is participation. Every glance, thought, or feeling interacts with the field. The difference lies in the quality of attention. Emotional observation distorts probability. Neutral observation refines it. When you witness without attachment, you allow coherence to emerge naturally. The particles of possibility align into higher order because you're not scattering them with fear or expectation. This is why surrender is not weakness. It's precision in action. The paradox is that neutrality feels empty at first. The ego interprets it as disinterest because it thrives on preference, liking, wanting, fearing. Yet beneath the silence of neutrality lies immense creative pressure, like the stillness before a wave forms. The power concentrated in that stillness is what the mystics called grace, movement without resistance. It's the same principle that allows the universe to expand effortlessly. No pushing, only unfolding. Conscious surrender doesn't mean suppressing emotion. It means allowing it to complete its motion. Fear, anger, desire, each is energy seeking resolution. When you resist them, they spiral endlessly. When you witness them neutrally, they discharge. The field reorganizes instantly because you've stopped feeding distortion. What once felt like emotional chaos becomes data, information about your current vibration. Neutrality reads the data without attachment, adjusts the signal, and moves on. You can test this in any moment. Someone criticizes you, a plan collapses, uncertainty rises. Normally, the mind rushes to react, defend, fix, blame. Instead, pause. Observe the contraction in your body, the tension building behind the thought. Notice it without naming it. Let it unfold like a sound fading into silence. Within seconds, the charge begins to dissolve. The situation hasn't changed, but your vibration has. The field feels that shift immediately. The mirror clears and new possibilities enter. In that clarity, action emerges naturally. It's no longer forced or strategic, it's responsive, arising from coherence rather than reaction. You may speak, move, or remain silent, but whatever happens carries precision. Neutral observation gives rise to intelligent action, the kind that feels effortless because it aligns with the flow rather than fighting it. Every moment becomes a collaboration with the field, not a struggle against it. This is how surrender turns into mastery. You're not abandoning intention, you're refining its delivery. The field doesn't need commands, it needs clarity. Neutrality removes the static that once distorted your signal. You begin to feel an unmistakable difference. Decisions unfold without confusion. Relationships reorganize without confrontation. Opportunities appear without pursuit. You realize the universe was never withholding anything. It was simply waiting for your vibration to stop contradicting itself. To sustain this state, awareness must stay honest. The mind will try to claim neutrality as another technique to achieve results, but that subtle attachment pulls you back into manipulation. True surrender holds no agenda. It's complete trust in the intelligence of the field to express what coherence requires. That's why neutrality feels weightless. It carries no demand. The moment you rest there, outcomes arrange themselves with a precision your plans could never replicate. Neutral observation also dissolves identity. The you who reacts begins to fade. What remains is awareness itself, watching the dance of probabilities with quiet awe. The observer and the observed start to merge. Every experience becomes part of the same rhythm, not something happening to you, but something happening through you. This recognition erases separation. You're not surrendering to the universe, you're surrendering to yourself as the universe. Over time, this state becomes natural. You no longer measure trust by results, but by peace. You notice that neutrality doesn't mean indifference. It means intimacy without control. You engage with life more deeply because you're no longer defending against it. The present moment, once something to manage, becomes something to inhabit completely. The field mirrors that coherence back in ways that defy logic, yet feel inevitable. To live in conscious surrender is to live as an open circuit. Energy flows through you without distortion. Creation expresses without resistance. The mind may still whisper its fears, but they no longer command the frequency. Observation itself has become prayer. Silence has become action. A quiet shift begins the moment you stop trying to transform and start remembering who you already are. Every layer of practice, every act of surrender has been preparing you for this recognition. Not that you create through the field, but that you are the field. The separation between observer and observed begins to dissolve, and what once felt like communication with something larger now feels like communion with yourself. The universe stops being a mystery to interpret and becomes your own consciousness looking back at you. The awakening of the quantum identity is not an achievement, it's a return. The you that has been trying to manifest, heal, improve, or become worthy is a construct built from perception, a cluster of memories and stories orbiting a false center. When that structure relaxes, awareness rushes in to reclaim its space. You realize that the observer you believe to be small and localized has never been confined to a body or a narrative. It was the infinite observing through a temporary lens, pretending to forget itself just long enough to experience discovery. This recognition doesn't arrive with fanfare. It unfolds as subtle stillness, a recognition beneath thought. The boundaries that once defined me and the world start to blur. Sensations, people, even silence itself feel animated by the same intelligence. It's not imagination, it's perception without the filters of identity. The veil that once made you feel separate was never real. It was sustained by attention focused on limitation. The moment attention relaxes, the field reveals itself as home. Deepak Chopra describes consciousness as a universal field aware of itself through countless points of reference. You are one of those points, yet not apart from the whole. The awakening of your quantum identity is the realization that your awareness and the field's awareness are identical. The wave doesn't exist apart from the ocean. It rises, falls, and disperses back into the same water that gave it form. Likewise, the self you've known, the personality with its preferences and fears, is a temporary pattern through which infinite awareness experiences individuality. The paradox is that nothing external changes. The world continues its rhythm, people move through their dramas, clocks keep time. But your position in relation to it all shifts entirely. You no longer look for meaning outside yourself because meaning radiates from within. The same events that once triggered resistance now feel orchestrated for clarity. You start to sense an intelligence weaving through everything, one that doesn't just guide your path, but is your path. This recognition brings an unexpected softness. The drive to prove, achieve, or control dissolves because there's nothing left to gain. Existence itself becomes enough. You begin to move through life the way light moves through space, effortless, unhurried, yet illuminating everything it touches. Creation flows through you as expression rather than ambition. Desire becomes lighter, curiosity replaces effort, and gratitude takes the place of striving. Awakening doesn't remove contrast, it redefines it. Challenges still appear, but they no longer feel like threats. They become mirrors showing where coherence wants to expand. The field never punishes, it recalibrates. Each disruption is an invitation to return to the frequency of knowing. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and begin to ask, "What part of the whole is revealing itself through this?" That single question transforms victimhood into vision. As this awareness deepens, you sense the body differently. It's no longer a vessel you inhabit, but a portal through which consciousness experiences density. Breath becomes sacred technology, the bridge between wave and particle, unseen and seen. Every inhale feels like drawing the cosmos inward, every exhale releasing it back into form. You start feeling the energetic communication between yourself and the environment as if the boundary between them never existed. The air carries memory. Sound becomes structure. Light feels personal. There's a humility that comes with this expansion. Power no longer means control, it means coherence. Influence is not about bending reality, but harmonizing with it so completely that resistance dissolves. You begin to notice that your presence affects spaces, that peace itself rearranges matter. People calm near you, circumstances untangle, timing perfects itself. Not because you intervene, but because the field recognizes its own reflection in you. This is what it means to live as the field rather than in it. The quantum identity also erases the concept of isolation. You see others as different expressions of the same consciousness, exploring itself through contrast. Compassion replaces judgment because the distinction between their path and yours disappears. Every encounter becomes an exchange of data within one vast organism. To love another is to acknowledge your own presence mirrored back through a different frequency. Eventually, even the word awakening loses weight. There's no longer an awakened or unawakened self, only awareness aware of itself. The spiritual journey, once imagined as ascent, reveals itself as expansion, not upward, but outward in all directions. You sense that creation is continuous, not as an act, but as a state of being. Life isn't happening to you or even through you. Life is you expressing infinite variation. This realization doesn't isolate you from the world, it anchors you more deeply in it. Mundane acts become sacred because you recognize them as portals of consciousness interacting with itself. The hand washing a dish, the eye meeting a stranger, the silence between words. You begin to understand why sages spoke of oneness not as concept, but as direct experience. There is no distance left between perceiver and perceived. The mirror from before has melted. The awakening of your quantum identity is not the end of transformation, but the beginning of creative participation. You no longer look for alignment. You are alignment. You live as coherence embodied, an extension of the universal field aware of itself in form. And from that state, every moment becomes a revelation of what has always been true. There was never separation, never waiting, never becoming. Only consciousness recognizing its own reflection in infinite ways, over and over, for the joy of remembering itself. Transformation was never about reaching a destination. The moment you trusted the process, the quantum field began aligning with you. Each release, each silence, each surrender was not a pause. It was creation unfolding through coherence. Trust became the bridge between form and essence, between the self that tries and the consciousness that allows. The portal was never outside. It opened inside you the instant you stopped asking how and began being. If you felt this truth resonate, write, "I trust the process" in the comments, so I know you reached the end. And if this journey spoke to you, subscribe. Stay with me as we keep exploring the invisible architecture of transformation together.